And we are back on Open Line. We're so glad that you're here with us on Open Line with your questions. And like I said, we've had a broad range of questions throughout the evening, and that is the way that the law is. There are so many things. I know a lot of times you're thinking, I need that knowledge. I need to know what to do in this situation. You don't know where to turn. This is a great opportunity for you to get those calls in. We don't have a lot of time left in this particular hour, so make sure if you do have one of those legal questions that you've been wondering about, give us a call, 737-7587. We are going to go back to the line. Of course, we're talking with Kevin Kennedy from the law firm of the Kennedy Law Firm. Joe is on the line with us. Joe, good evening. We're glad that you're here. Do you have a question for Kevin?
Yes, I do have a question.
All right, go right ahead, Joe.
Okay, I have a friend. He works for this company, and he has an issue with coworkers making racial statements, which he told his manager that my two coworkers been making racial comments and statements. He tells my friend to overlook it, don't worry about it, and he ends up promoting one of them into a supervisor position, and they continue to harass and make racial remarks, even though he told management they do it. And in their little protocol book or whatever rules they have says any racial statements or comments made is an automatic termination, but the management promotes one of them into a supervisor position. What can my friend do to solve this problem?
Thank you, Joe, for the question. And the real world is you're not going to find hardly a corporation anywhere that doesn't have a similar policy as that. Now, as you deal with the corporate level, you know, there's this guy, there's the lineman, there's the foreman, then we go on up to a manager and the superintendent. I submit to you, as you go up, and then it gets down to evidence. Can you prove this person said that? Do you have others that will come forward and say, I heard that. You always have a right to get a statement, and a person can sign it and have a right for an affidavit. They said, I absolutely heard it. There's no misunderstanding. And so there's also, you have a right to work in harassment-free environment. So there's some federal statutes out there that would be against race discrimination, age discrimination, gender discrimination. So there are rights, and I didn't say you get everybody the first go round, didn't say you get everybody the second go round, but I can assure you this, you will reap what you sow. So if you keep violating and going on, the days are limited. And thank you, Joe, for that. And I would just say be persistent, and it always gets down to what you can prove and what you can't prove.
And you just never know a lot of times, and that's why it helps to ask the lawyers these kinds of questions. You know, I was just listening to a podcast. I love podcasts.
I do too.
One recently, some kids in a certain school in a large school district were bullied. There was, you know, the parents are going against the rules that are laid out according to the school board. But one thing that I didn't realize, on the podcast, one of the girls who had been bullied was talking with the principal, and she recorded him. And she was able to do that. I didn't really understand that you could do that.
Yeah. In the state of Tennessee, you know, you have a right. That's why you should talk to a lawyer privately about your circumstances. As a general rule, one person can record another person, and that's legal. What you can't do is take a recording and put it under this table where Chuck and I, and neither one of us knew, that's an illegal wiretap, and it's a federal offense, and you can get into all kinds of trouble. And guess what? They said, well, how did they get the mafia on these? Well, because they'll go in there and put an application in and get a court order for private surveillance. You said, well, that's unconstitutional. Again, remember, that'll go up the chain all the time. What is the question? Is it against public policy for crime? Yes. Do we have illegal search and seizure? Yes. Do you have a right against self-incrimination? Yes. So that's why this lawyer argues one way and this one, and who knows how the chips fall. But always have the best lawyer, and that guy can put it together. You know, some of the briefs we see at the law firm are this deep. Wow. That's a lot of work. Somebody had to do it, and somebody had to pay for it. My assessment.
Good information to know. All right, let's go back to the lines right now. Gloria is on the line with us here on Open Line. Good evening, Gloria. Do you have a question for Kevin?
Yes, my name is Gloria, and I have a question. My grandson worked through this temporary service for this guy, and it's been almost a month. Yes. My grandson works through this temporary service, and the guy is constantly getting him to run around about paying him. He won't answer his calls.
Gloria, you might turn your television down a little. I can hear a little of that feedback in there, and that'll kind of help you be able to hear us better. So go ahead if you could.
Okay, is that good?
That sounds better.
That's good. And I got your question, Gloria. And really, we're seeing this run rampant everywhere because when money gets tight in situations, then people don't want to pay their bills. And they say, hey, I'm running temporary service, guys. I'll get y'all, help me do all this work on this landscape. And then when the work's over, he said, hey, I'll have to pay you when I get paid. And 1 week into 2 and 2 into 3. Well, guess what? We have what's known as the Department of Labor, state of Tennessee. You can call them and file a complaint. If it's a contractor, he has a state license. And guess what? If you file enough complaints, they will take his license because it's a crime. And really, there's all kinds of statutes that are out there. You just have to keep going. What was it we say in the law business? The squeaky door gets the oil. Some much of the time, and then guess what? If they're professional cons, they're here today and they're gone tomorrow. Well, we can't even find them. We don't have, and I want everyone to know, everybody's putting these things online and they're catching them. And then they'll come to the lawyer and I said, well, where's the address? I know, Mr. Kennedy, I didn't get an address. I said, what's the phone number? Mr. Kennedy, I didn't get a phone number. All I know is when I see him, and here's the email, and of course, there's no response. Use your best judgment. Talk to somebody. Let 2 of you work these people together. Thank you for your comments and questions, man.
Absolutely. Now, another thing, Kevin, that I think a lot of people are not familiar with or that are not aware of is when we talk about sometimes you're fighting the law firm, I mean, you're fighting the insurance company,
yes,
or you're fighting the hospital,
yes,
care and that sort of thing. You may have, documentation and that sort of thing for, for a long time, but you may not contact a lawyer for a couple years into the situation. Yeah. What's the red flag there? What's the problem there?
Anytime that you are saying, when you're talking to this person, what do we hear all the time? Well, this is Ann. When I call back, you don't get Ann, you get Martha. We call back Martha, now we got Susan. We're getting the runaround. I like to put it in writing, and smart people say, well, what is your name? Corporations are so slick, I don't have the authority, and then give me your supervisor, and you can work them up the chain. One of the big things is this Google. People can't tolerate Google because when they're putting that Google, that president, he's held to a standard with the board of directors. They're going to be on it. So the truth is, you advance your own claim, be as documented as you possibly can. You're always, and then what are the questions you're trying to put together? Who, what, when, where, and how? Who told me this? What are the circumstances? And if they just out and out lied to you, that's a problem. That's a fraud. It's against public policy.
And you've also got to contact the lawyer within a certain amount of time.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You don't leave that thing laying around. And one of the worst things we say, well, I'm working with Chuck. Me and Chuck got a great, well, Chuck's no longer here. What? And then I said, well, Chuck told me this. Well, I don't care what Chuck said. He's not here. This is how it's going to be. It's a ripoff.
Well, and as we look to, a lot of times people say, why do I really need a lawyer? Well, one of the main reasons, when you look at the top reasons that you need to hire a lawyer, it's just the fact that the law is complicated.
Yes, it can be interpreted against you. And even so, what are you going to say? Yeah, I know that's the law, but sue me. I've got the money. I'll fight you. I'm going to say that's not the way it was. Hello, come in.
That's it. What about these situations, and we often get people calling in about this, you have a problem with your neighbor.
Yes.
You're not sure how to approach it.
Yes.
You don't know whether or not to go knock on their door and say, hey, whether or not the music was too loud, whether or not you feel like they're getting on your property.
Their dog is over on you.
Yeah.
Multitude of problems. They're parking in your driveway.
Should you contact a lawyer to find out?
It's always a good idea to try to find out what your rights are before you move. Number 2, there's an old saying, I always go back to these old sayings, good fences help keep good neighbors. What that means is this is kind of our line, and we overlook some things because I can't tell you the number of stories that we've had real bad situations come out over a little line. And in the law school, they said, don't ever get involved in a line dispute. because you can never settle it. Some people's personnel. But what I would say is talk to a lawyer. Get their opinion, talk it out. And I'd like to try to keep the lawyer out, but that doesn't mean they don't know that I've talked to the lawyer. That means you and I have talked and we've got a plan, and that's A, and Kevin Kennedy will have plan B if this doesn't work, then C, and of course, what are you going to do if somebody just comes over and says, we're just going to park in your yard all the time? Well, we can't have that. There is a line, and some people will push you over the line.
Well, and another thing, we've got about 2 minutes left, Kevin, but I did want to mention, too, I heard recently a case with the Uber driver.
Yes.
They didn't get the tip that they wanted.
Yeah.
So they were upset. So they went back, and the people, they lived in an apartment complex. The Uber driver comes back and just parks in that apartment complex in front of the house where they dropped, because they knew where they dropped this person off. They knew that person didn't tip them. They were trying to intimidate them. Does that person have any rights to tell that person they cannot park right in front of their...
Again, you know, we have rights where we can't be harassed. That's harassment. If you don't watch out, that's stalking. You said, well, I pulled up because I was waiting on my tip. Well, hello, come in. There's a warrant down there right now for you stalking because you came back 3 days in a row. That's harassment. And you come up there and that's well, I didn't think that. I was just trying to get my... So there is intense feelings. Avoid that. And so do the right thing. You're going to avoid some problems. And we are seeing it like crazy in the grocery store, in the parking lot, at the gas station. You heard Kevin Kennedy say it. You better be on your best behavior. You better teach your children be on their best behavior, because it will blow to kingdom come.
Absolutely. About the final 30 seconds in this, I always like to get your words of wisdom for the evening. Kind of what's on your mind.
Words of wisdom right now would be, what I like to think about is, we've got a family. When you got a family, you got to protect it. If you have a home, you have to protect it. So let us use our best judgment. You know, so many people say you're in the penitentiary because you talked. You know what teachers tell me? Say, Kevin, some of them just can't shut their mouth. They've got to run their mouth till I have to do it. We had a judge, they said, I'm trying very hard not to put you in jail, but you're being very disrespectful to the court. They wouldn't quit. The judge had to put them in jail. So again, let's bridle that tongue. You know, life and death is in the power of the tongue. That comes out of the Bible. I believe it. So I would bridle it, and I would teach, and I'm on an agenda to protect my family, my friends, my office, and that's what we're going to do.
Absolutely. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll tell you how you can contact the Kennedy Law Firm right after this.